committee meeting of Thursday, January 23rd. Norton Media is recording this meeting. If anyone else in the audience is recording, please let us know at this time. All right, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first order of business is to approve the minutes from the January 9th open meeting, and people will do them separately.
Yes.
So first, our regular open meeting. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And
Opposed and abstained.
Two abstain.
We got two abstained. 302.
And the joint meeting minutes, do we have a motion to approve them?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And abstained.
302.
The warrants, Mrs. Cohen?
I reviewed and approved the warrants for January 9th, 2020, $1,052,708. I wish to enter them into public record.
Right, and student representative update.
Hello.
You're
So-
by yourself tonight.
Hmm?
You're by yourself.
Yeah. So at the high school, we had our mid-years last week, and to help us with the stress, there was yoga on Wednesday. And also to help every morning, the Kindness Club was downstairs to greet us. On Tuesday, there were pictures of Mrs. Faye's dog, Teddy, saying like, you can do it, little encouragement stuff. There was a Bubble Wednesday, which is very nice to walk into, as well as an Encouragement Thursday with mints, and Good Luck Erasers on Friday. On the 14th, RoCap Honor Society showed Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech during all lunches. That's always great to see. There are parent conferences next Thursday. The Coffee House, hosted by Tri-M, is next Friday. And DECA was super successful again this year. 26 students qualified for states and 41 placed in the top 10. So that's really great to hear about. Here at the middle school, they had the winter basketball dance on the 10th. They have the GOB tomorrow, and the mid-year social is next Friday. At the Yale, the Boosterthon fundraiser has been going on. Jumpman Jay and Acrobat Cat from Booster have been all over the school, greeting students at the door with music and dancing, eating and playing with students at lunch and at recess, and supporting the fundraiser by getting every student excited for the Glow Run, which was successfully completed today. And I saw a little bit of that on Twitter, and that looked like it was a lot of fun. Mr. Gagan was taped to the cafeteria wall and pied in the face by a 4th and 5th grade student during the 2 lunches last week when students reached an incentive, and I really wish I was there. And Mr. Bilowa and Mr. G will both kiss a pig since the $15,000 goal was reached as of today, and we're all looking forward to that.
Yeah. There better be some photos of that.
I hope so. At the LGN, there's a movie night tomorrow. There's a literacy night next Thursday. And students recently earned music during lunch, which I feel like we should have at the high school. That'd be really cool. And staff have been working hard to implement the Writers' Workshop model and receive further training in January. At the JCS, they had their Winter Wonderland curriculum night on the 15th. Yoga is still ongoing for them, which is also something we should probably bring to the high school. Continuous yoga would be good. And then also the preschool open house for new families is next Wednesday.
Any questions? Thank you as always. Great job. Dr. Bayetta, the 2020 Adams Scholarship.
Yeah, thank you so much. There's already celebrations of these students, but we always try to get the list out to you folks at the high school. We have 52 class of 2020 students, including both Cooper and Caroline. Caroline's not here tonight, but I want to recognize the two of them for all their work as well. We had 52 students who qualified with Proficient Advanced, and then in the top 25%, that's a requirement. And that's a tuition payment to a 4-year college each year. It does include the fees and all of that, and it's the same thing to the community colleges. It does not go on to private colleges, it's just the state universities and community colleges. But congratulations to all of the students. We once again continue to see students performing at a high level on this assessment. There's also changes coming in the near future, as we know, with the MCAS changing for that group. But I think it's really important to recognize these students, which they've been recognized with breakfast and all of that in the past. And then tonight we want to make sure that the students are recognized by you folks.
Breakfast was very nice.
Yes.
Do you want to have that continued at the high school as well?
All right,
Thank you.
well, it's always great to see those scholarships. That's awesome. Okay, next, review and vote to approve the 2020-2021 school calendar.
Okay, so tonight you have two versions of the 2020-2021 school calendar, which is actually kind of hard to say. And it feels very space-like. I feel like I should have a flying car, but I don't. The first version is a pre-Labor Day start for both staff and students in grades 1 through 12. This is not something that we have done in the past, but due to the lateness of Labor Day in 2020, it's something that we're exploring. Staff will return on August 31st for a welcome back day. And then I believe, I apologize, that's actually, yes, no, that's correct. We changed it 6 times because of Professional Development Day would be on Tuesday the 1st, and students in grades 1 through 12 would attend on the 2nd and the 3rd. We would have a long weekend for the holiday weekend, and on Monday the 8th, our kindergarten students would come for their very first day of school.
Tuesday.
I'm sorry, Tuesday the 8th, thank you, I apologize. Originally, we had looked at students coming back on the 1st, but it's also a state primary voting day. So after I talked to the town hall and town clerk, and we moved it to the 2nd to see if we could help out a little bit there. In draft 2, we have staff returning before Labor Day, which is typically our practice. They come back for our welcome back day, our professional development day. And then students would not begin until Tuesday the 8th, which with grades 1 through 12 coming that day, kindergarten would start on the 9th, and our Little Answers preschool program would start on the 10th. I did also survey staff, as we had discussed at our last meeting, and I'm sure it's probably not a big surprise to anyone, 62% of our staff preferred coming back before Labor Day for both students and staff. It does get us out the June 15th. And they also did prefer the professional development day in November, which unfortunately neither of these options have at this point. But
So according to your calendar, it actually gets you out on June 16th, not the 15th.
yes,
Correct.
I
And the
apologize,
other,
yes.
and the other calendar is only the 18th.
So we were only
So it's
picking
only
up 2 days.
And I'm just going to go out on a limb and ask why, I thought that the reason why we moved the voting to the middle school, because I've looked at these calendars and I really, I'm not sure for 2 days, for me, it makes a lot of sense. But I also wondered why we were taking sort of the election day for 2020, 2021 off as a no school day. Because wasn't the purpose, we know it's a big election.
Yeah.
But wasn't the purpose of moving the elections to the middle school was because we could contain it.
Right.
We would require voters to come in the side door, which wouldn't put them into the school, sort of the school environment. So if we were to have school on that day, and I know we're going to talk about traffic, and we're going to talk about parking, and we're going to talk about angry people in Norton, but if it means getting out that extra day, then we would only have that one day discrepancy.
Right. So we've consistently, you have consistently had presidential election day off, regardless of those conversations. So that was the approach. The approach was that it's such a big day and there's so much voting that goes on in this hectic in town. And it had no connection to the location. It had to do with a consistent calendar that President's Day has always been off, except for Teachers PD Day until from the time I've been here and prior to. So that's the reason for that. On the other side of it, yes, it's the biggest election and causes all those issues. We're going to be going through a run this spring, twice. March 3rd is the primary.
Primaries.
So we'll get some feedback from that, and then we'll have the town elections as well in May
But
or
the town
April.
one, that's a Saturday, right?
And that's a Saturday, so that doesn't impact us as much. And we don't know any other primaries. But that was the only rationale behind the idea of, we've had a history of just getting out of town, if you will, for lack of a better phrase, on presidential elections.
I do understand that. I understand the reasoning. It makes a lot of sense, and, you know, I guess it just depends on the way that we want to sort of think about it. Is, should we, because we're trying to make a convenience, maybe it's about the town hiring more sort of police to kind of be able to direct traffic in and out of this school. I mean, I know regardless of where we have it, if it's a school building, we only have one way in and one way out. So traffic is going to be traffic, and
I think it's going to be traffic no matter where in the town. I don't think
Yeah.
that part of it.
But I
so
think that-
I'm not opposed to thinking about if we wanted to add that day back on as a regular school day, or
The
maybe we
September
wanna-
1st day or the November 3rd? Or
The
both?
November 3rd.
If memory serves me, I believe the last presidential, we were in school and it was chaos.
No, we were not in school, it was a PD.
What was the one that
It
we
was
received
PD.
numerous complaints because we had session?
That was the-
It may have been the primary.
It was the primary.
State primary.
It was the
It
state
was,
primary.
I think it was the presidential primary.
All right, because I mean, we had
And I believe,
people up and down, left and right.
I believe a big part of that was the parking for the voters was not clearly marked, even though it was there. I think that's when we had a changeover of town clerks, and it was very chaotic, and I think it's gotten much better, you know, now that they've kind of fixed that, I believe.
But I think, you know, it just goes right back to that conversation that if it's such a huge sort of issue for our schools to house, I mean, we've seen on social media that people are commenting about Dr. Gaeta having a lot of power to make this all better. But maybe the school isn't the right option to host these, and maybe it's the Board of Selectmen that need to think about another option. Because it really, I mean, it certainly, I think from our perspective, we've all tried really hard to think of options that would keep our students safe, our staff safe, get people in and out of the building. We just don't have an ideal school for it, regardless. Parking is difficult, entering and exiting the building is difficult, so I just think that if we want to give a day off, then we can sort of talk about that, but I'm not sure that I fully agree with a full day off. To kind of then push the calendar out, that extra day in June. That's just-
We could use the day as a teaching day, as an early release day, which would get the students in to an early release day, and then the rest of the day would be a professional development day, of which that would be minimal staffing at each of the buildings, and we could get the day in. And we could certainly use the PD day in November, or the half day.
And in your survey, that's what teachers wanted as well?
They wanted the full day.
They would like the full day in November.
But that means it's off.
Right.
The biggest issue, I think, in this election that's a little different, and not to, you know, as you know, I have this power, I guess, about the building use, is
We're not making this up, it was.
yeah, it was on social media. I play this from one area only, the safety of the people I'm responsible for. So when I recommended to you the change to the middle school with elections, it solely had to do with agreeing, not only with the teachers and everyone else, that we had too many open areas at the high school because it's a central gymnasium, not an outside gymnasium, which, by the way, I was told was one of the reasons why originally this was the plan, because it was an outside gymnasium. The clerk, to her recommendation, is not interested in various polling places. I get that. Some communities do it, some communities don't. My biggest concern is, based on how contentious of a 2020 election this is going to be, the better off I am with not having kids around. Because I think it's going to be, very contentious. I think it's going to be very close. I think in communities like Norton, last time it was only, if I remember correctly, a couple of hundred votes difference, Clinton over Trump. It could be the opposite of that. It could be, it brings out more people in favor or against. The third, we don't know. So If we want to get the day in, I think we should then consider an early release day, and we could definitely use the PD day, and we still stay within the contract and
Just
everything else.
another idea as well, if we wanted to get a day in, it could be that the lower turnout rate is going to be the September 1st state primary. So instead of having that as a professional development day, it would be a school day, because I think you're going to get a lower turnout for that versus the presidential election. And then you could move the PD day to November 3rd. So again, you'd still be picking up a day.
Then we can go back before
Yeah,
Labor
right.
Day.
I don't think it's worth going back before Labor Day
To get a
to
day.
get 2 days. I mean, that's
Especially
just
if
my
we have
opinion.
That would give you, that would give us 3 days. That would give us the
You get out
first,
on
the second,
Wednesday
and the
as opposed to
third.
Friday.
Well, I don't think we can predict when we're gonna get out. I mean, we live in New England.
Right, but I mean, that changes regardless of what day we go back to school in September. So if you're looking at a target date of getting out on Wednesday, the 16th, you're only getting out on Friday, the 18th, if you go back to school
Right.
before Labor Day.
So if you picked up September 1st, you would get out Tuesday, the 15th. Currently, this year, I believe,
Or
we're
if you
slated
picked
to
up
get out
November
Monday. the
3rd
15th.
half day, you'd do the same thing.
Correct.
And you'd get out the 17th too. Either way, you're only getting 2 days of the year.
I wrote an article once for Just Thinking that I do with the staff every so often. And it was how to get out of school by June 2nd. I've never taken more feedback from my staff because I had us going to school on, why can't we go to school on the 26th, 27th, 28th, and 29th in December and all this stuff. I am not the biggest fan of starting before Labor Day. I've done it before in other districts. I'm not against it. I think, Carolyn, your thoughts are pretty clear. The calendar belongs to the school committee, as long as we stay within 2 guidelines of the teacher's contract. Otherwise, it's fully your decision and only yours. We can think about this for another meeting and bring it back on February 6th.
And honestly, Joe and I are here all year.
12 months.
Whatever you guys
So
want.
the only difference is that some of these calendars give us less than 10 days
Yes.
in June to extend if we go beyond. And that is always concerning because a few years ago, we had
We had
6
7.
or 7.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, that's my only concern because we already have eliminated the Good Fridays and all religious holidays, right?
Yeah.
So now we're looking at options such as double sessions and Saturdays, if we ever get to that.
An option to go to school, I mean, people will absolutely hate me for asking, but I'm just looking for clarification. So Columbus Day and
No,
Patriots Day.
national holidays.
They're all national holidays.
Yeah, national holidays on the
State
calendar,
holidays.
or state holidays.
State holidays. I mean, I think it would be really nice if kids were in school on those days, to
I-
actually recognize the reason why those days are being honored. I'm not sure that we do enough when kids are at home to kind of honor those days, but
So
Just thinking
if
of-
we voted on this tonight and accepted tonight, we'd have to make a decision tonight about either September 1st or November 3rd.
Yeah, you can stew on it until the 6th if you want your next meeting, I'm fine with that.
What do
None
you
of this
guys-
is a major concern.
Dinesh, you're smirking, what do you have to say then? I saw that.
By state law, you go for 180 days. We're not giving or getting days here. Whether you start September 4th or August 20th, it doesn't really matter. You gotta do 180 days. If you think it's smart to skip a national election day, then skip it. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I couldn't be less. It really doesn't matter.
I will tell you for the sake of, not to disagree with anyone who's surveyed or any of that, we do have a very split parental community on this, if you remember from a few years ago. I mean, there was nothing, it was probably a survey that we got the most responses about, and it had the biggest split I've ever seen. So you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. You gotta go to school for 180 days. And, as Dinesh says all the time and reminds us all the time, if somebody wants to take their kid out of school for 2 days or a week because they're going on vacation, that's what they do. Unfortunately, by the way, that counts against us now in
It
the
does.
accountability
Do you
system.
guys want to vote on this tonight, or do you want to think about it and vote on it next week?
I just want to, if I could just say, so the following year, the 21 and 22 calendar
Yep.
year, so if we started after Labor Day, that year we would still be getting out June 15th if there were no snow days.
Correct.
Because
Yeah.
Labor Day is
Yeah, it's all about when, again, every so often, this is what happens.
I'm aware. My birthday's around Labor Day. I was my president for 18 years of school.
Go back to
And-
school.
Go back to school.
And,
And I think I just want to also go on record and say, I continue to look at March, and I know that anecdotally, March is the toughest month
Mhm.
for social emotional needs for children. We all think it's sort of around the holidays, or March is that super, super long month when there's no real breaks.
So we've added one?
I do
For
see that
students?
there's a couple, so
Right.
I'm not opposed to even at some point thinking about, thank you for adding those one day for each grade level, but it's still concerning that that's sort of that super long month for children, so.
Do we want to vote tonight, or do you want to, Dan, did you have something to add?
No, I'm kind of with Vanessa. I mean, we have 180 days. I would be a proponent of having a national teacher off.
Okay.
Short of that, I would say version 1 of each year would be.
So your vote is version 1 or version 2, or you come up with a third scenario?
And because it's the first time you're seeing 21, 22,
Before Labor Day.
we can vote
We're
on
not
another
voting
day as
on
well.
that one, just the 20.
That was the first week. It's certainly up to you.
You want to vote tonight at least on next year, or do we want to?
I'm ready.
Okay. So then we're just going to vote on the first one, we're not going to vote on the second year yet?
Second one's just a review, right? It's not-
Yes, right. Okay, so. We have
You need a mo- you need a-
to-
you need a motion.
To accept 1, 2, or a third option.
Okay.
So
So
stop both.
we need a motion to accept either version 1, version 2, or does someone have a version 3?
Version 2 for approved version 1 as written.
So how do you vote, like, if somebody wants version 1 and someone wants version 2?
Then they lose the
Don't
vote.
we do a vote?
Yeah, so you have a recommendation
All right,
for
so-
version 1, it needs to be seconded.
So we have to vote on both of them though, and which are, no.
No.
Okay. All right, so we're having a motion to accept either version 1, version 2, or version 3.
We have that from Dan, seconded by Dinesh.
Okay, so all those in favor of version 1, raise your hand. All those in favor of version 2?
No.
Oh, sorry.
All those against version 1.
All those against version 1?
So that's the 3. So the motion loses
Sorry, Dan.
as recommended. Is there another motion on the table?
That was for version 2.
Motion to approve version 2 of the 2020-2021 calendar as written.
Second.
All those in favor of version 2 of the 2020-2021?
You got it.
I got it, didn't
All those in
I? All
favor?
those in favor? All those against?
3-2, it passes.
All right, so version 2 as written.
As written.
Thank you.
Which is, for the public's notification, means
Staff will return to school on Tuesday, September 1st, with our professional development day being Wednesday, September 2nd. First day for students in grades 1 through 12 will be Tuesday, September 8th. Kindergarten first day will be Wednesday, September 9th, and first day for Little Lancers preschool will be Thursday, September 10th. Thank you.
and
And
the emails will begin.
we have the vaping detecting draft.
We are tabling
for
that.
now. Okay. Review and vote on Norton High School course offerings. Mr. Joel.
I was hoping someone would be before me so I could see.
the table.
All right, so included in the packet tonight, you have kind of just the rundown of the new course proposals for 2020, 2021. Just to give you an idea of the process there, if you take a look, October 23rd, teachers were asked to submit the course proposals by November 18th. After that, they were reviewed by the academic coordinators group at the high school, presented by those who actually authored the proposal, and then also at the November 20th and December 18th site councils, where they were sort of put forward for some feedback from students and teachers on the site council, as well as our community member, and also at the academic coordinators meeting. So there's really 6 proposals here. 5 of them are new courses. 1 of them is actually kind of a restoration of an old course. So I'll deal with that one first, which is English 4. So a few years ago, and I'm not exactly sure on the timeline, this was turned into seminars as far as the different semester-long courses that were offered directed at particular topics in English. So literature, humor and satire, Write for College, various things where it would give, the idea was that it would give seniors a great deal of choice in what they wanted to take as seniors. What we found over the time is that that was really a false choice, in that because there were so many options and students selected them, if there were very few students, say 4 or 5 who selected one, that course would not run. So that they would lose that first choice because there weren't enough students to carry it. Additionally with that, because there were so many, you might have only one offering of a particular type of course. So let's say humor and satire, although that one's pretty popular, if there were only 15 people who wanted to sign up for it, only one would run. And then with additional course offerings throughout your senior year, it would be very difficult for you to take, that might be a conflict with another singleton like AP Physics or something like that, so you would not be able to take your first choice. So what the English department is proposing here is to go back to the sort of old way of having a single year of college and honors English 4. And they see that this period of seminars has led to a great deal of innovative curriculum work, a lot of different sort of course materials being developed, units of study, and that they would then incorporate those into the new course. So it would be that you would actually get a sampling of all the different ones along the way. And the justification as you look through it there is that actually we might be dealing or serving more students by letting all of them take a look at the different course offerings rather than having to specialize in one, maybe only getting their third choice or second choice. Now they'd be able to get a little bit of something that they really wanted to, as well as a sampling of other things. That's the general gist behind that one. Any questions on that? The second choice, or the second course on here, is another English course. This is one of the only sort of standalone electives that was proposed this year. And this is proposed by a teacher who really emphasizes social emotional learning and sees sort of reading as kind of a key to understanding students, to knowing what their interests are, finding out about what their sort of passions are, but also giving them the opportunity to be exposed to other things. She also sees a lot of recuperative help in reading, and that's something that Reader's Life is Book Love is the professional development that she's reading, which is encouraging people to do some exploration, but as well as finding basically solace in books in order to recuperate from some of the day-to-day stress that they might find them. So that is kind of her emphasis on this. And what this would be an elective for any years of English, similar to, or any grade levels. It would be similar to our other English electives of creative writing, of journalism, that other people would take. That would be kind of what this would be in competition with, so to speak, as far as students wanting to focus more on reading than necessarily on one of those writing electives. Any questions on this one? The next few are from our business department. So TV Video 3, as the title suggests, advanced editing and studio skills. So this would be a deepening of some of the skills that are already covered in TV Video 1 and 2 for students who are really interested in it. They also, Jen Skoronik, who proposes, has written several grants and acquired a great deal of hardware as well as some software that these students would be working with at a higher level. She has acquired some Macs and some of the sort of more high-end video editing equipment. So they would be approaching those, Final Cut as one of them. So that would be to allow students who have a particular passion in that advance even further. And the companion class to that would be TV Video 4, which is actually more of a project-based curriculum that would be almost an independent study, open to a few students every semester who had a real passion in it and wanted to do kind of an independent production. And those would be in sequence with TV Video 1 and TV Video 2 right now. Any questions on them?
Would this be something we could partner with Wheaton on a little bit?
So,
For TV videos?
I'm glad you asked that question. So we just, I just was at a meeting, as you know, that you were both at, and so we've already communicated our desire to be part of that connection.
Great.
So now it's just a matter of finding the best way for us to do that. We've asked for interns, so for students that actually could come over from Wheaton and actually support programs like this.
The next, which is the third business course offering, would be Business Law 2. And some of the feedback that we received at Site Council in particular would be to actually add a little bit to this name in order to be a bit more descriptive. So this would be a continuation of a very popular course, Business Law 1. Business Law 1 covers a lot of actually just background on the court system and the way that our legal system works, whereas this would specialize a little bit more in like personal law for rental agreements, personal finance, those types of things. And so it would be a continuation. It's actually also the same textbook, so it continues what the curriculum is that's taught in Business Law 1. And Business Law 1 is a particularly popular business class, so this would be seen as particularly applicable for college and career readiness for students who are looking to continue their business education. Any questions about that one? And so the last course is probably the biggest addition to a department, which would be the addition of a third language in the language department. So this, there's a couple of things that went into this. I know about 3 years ago, there was a survey done of 8th grade students in particular about what would be a third language they'd be interested in. And I know American Sign Language was one of the top choices, was the top choice of that. There is a link there to some additional survey that was sent out to 8th graders this year from our foreign language department. There were 43, it was kind of an anecdotal study, or just asked how many students would be interested in taking American Sign Language as a world language. Some 43% indicated that they would have quite a bit of interest in it, just to support sort of that this would be serving a need. Obviously at the high school we also have the Reed's DHH room, so there are a lot of students who are integrated into some of our classes as well that are hard of hearing or deaf. This would be a way to connect with those students and obviously make them more part of the curriculum. It makes a lot of sense as it is a different type of language than sort of world languages are. It's a much more visual learning style that would accommodate some of our other learners as well, perhaps. So the plan right now is to offer this to rising 8th grade and 9th graders. Rising 9th graders and 10th graders. The idea being that we would eventually sort of flesh it out to something that would be a full world language requirement of the 3 years that you would need for a 4-year college. So to take 3 sequential years of language, it would feel just like Spanish and French right now as that role. Obviously, it would be a little bit of an experiment initially, seeing what the interest would be and how many students we would need to accommodate with sections and staffing and those types of things. But I think it's a really exciting opportunity that we're looking forward to trying to see if students are interested.
And we're seeing that colleges are accepting it as if they require 2 years of a foreign language, they're accepting that as one?
Yeah, there are some programs that would be similar. Foxborough has had one for quite some time, I think about 20 years. I know Lexington High School also has had a pretty lengthy program of American Sign Language. So there are schools, and there are other schools that are adopting it as well. So it has been something that would be accepted for colleges.
Just wanted to say 2 things. I think Ethan hit upon something that's really, really important, and that is to really take a look at an area where any student of any learning ability, with any areas of support and need, that this is the one area in the world languages where it can be very effective. And this is, and I can speak from some experience in talking to my colleagues over at a local district where, we see a lot more variety of students in this area, instead of discussions about how students can't or it's too difficult to. There's a lot of discussion about this concept of a theory of a language acquisition device, LAD, that certain people have, right? And so this is one of the areas where left brain and right brain and all of that can come into play, just not the left brain, because it is more visual and all of that. So that's 1. 2, we actually just recently found out that one of our staff members is actually now licensed as an American Sign Language certified teacher. So that person's already on site and someone who's very much connected to the deaf and hard of hearing community, personally and professionally. So that gives us also some more flexibility there. That does cause other situations in other departments, because you can't just take away and add, you gotta take a look. And I think the last part is, come on folks, we're Norton High School. We need to be offering a third language. Let's do it. Let's do it. It's time. It's gonna be 2020.
60%.
2021?
Sorry?
Wasn't it like 60-something% that wanted this as the
Yeah.
It was
next option?
It was overwhelming.
overwhelming
At the
that
time.
the students were
What was the
interested.
second language, just out of curiosity?
I actually believe it was Portuguese.
Yeah.
Okay.
Me falo português. I could teach you. Only a stipend.
You had nothing to
That's all
do
I
with
need.
that, did you?
I was going to ask how, I do know that this was kind of presented as, I think, collaborating with Reed's. So what exactly, what's sort of the perception of how this will play itself out? Will the Reads Collaborative be active in teaching these classes, or?
So potentially. So that would have to be where we figured out how many sections. There are some Reed staff members who had expressed interest of teaching this. Definitely the Reed staff and Evelyn Rankin, who is there, was very much behind this. She sees it as a tremendous step into sort of showing the acceptance of the DHH students who are on campus. So they were very supportive of it and had looked into sort of the licensure there as well. So there might be some sharing of staff that could happen. But again, that would be something depending on how many sections we would run, we'd want to figure out.
I'm just thinking sort of financially, because that's always sort of the really difficult conversation.
Yeah.
Would this require an additional staff?
Yep. Yeah, so what we will have a budget presentation from Ethan that coming forward to me that calls for that. And then it's about situations. Remember, we have interpreters and we have teachers, right, of the deaf and hard of hearing community. So that's what we need is a certified teacher. And those are the angles we would have to have some discussions on with Reed in terms of how they're able to support us with that if needed. But I will also tell you that the idea that the non-hard of hearing and deaf community has the opportunity to be part of that community by learning it will be one of the first in the area. Because we actually house students that are deaf and hard of hearing. So that's a nice connection for our students in general. I can tell you as a father of a current 8th grade middle school student that my daughter, just from the socialization of DHH students, is already at a level of being able to communicate full sentences, and she knows the alphabet, and she's doing it. I mean, is it proficient? I don't think so. It's beginner. But there's communication because she has a relationship with a DHH student that she continuously has since she's been here in 6th grade. So there's that's just me seeing it as
I saw that back in JCS too.
Yeah, exactly. JCS, the presentation of the JCS of students in the DHH program that are signing as everyone is singing. I mean, that's actually one of the most emotional times I've had since I've been here because of that wonderful connection that was made. So it does require a vote.
Any other questions or comments on this?
I have a quick question on the topic of opportunity. Do we offer a financial literacy class?
As a math class, and also there's accounting within the business department.
So do we have a motion to accept the new Norton High School course offerings?
So
Second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
As Mr. Dahlman gets up, I just wanted to thank him for the thoroughness of the report that you received. And again, if you want to go see any of these statistics and information, if you weren't able to, because we sent it to you electronically as well. So thank you, Ethan.
There are also links to curriculum maps.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to, we should also mention the academic coordinators. Thank you to them for coming forward with some of these. Some of these are more comfortable than others, for lack of a better phrase, so it's really moving this forward. So congratulations to them all.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Wells.
In your packet, you have the year-to-date FY20 financials. We are watching closely the substitutes. Again, we're expecting those to be overspent. Targeting looks like right now it's running about $250,000. And then we're watching the utilities pretty closely as well. We expect to see some improvements from the windows. The window project to see some better heating and electricity prices. So we're hoping to, looking forward to see what those signals are going to be. If you have any further questions, I'm certainly answer any. Email or call.
Just since you mentioned it, where does the Yale stand on the window project?
We are, Lockheed I think is putting in the last of the windows right now. We had a couple of broken panes that came in. We have some shades that are going to be replaced. I think we're wrapping it up over the next few weeks and moving into the punch list.
And the other schools, the punch list are completed?
Yeah, I think he's completed.
Yeah, over 90% of the punch lists are, basically the punch list is they have their own as contractors. Then we have T2, our architect, and then myself and Wade did a visual of every single building and every single classroom a few weeks back and created our own questions and punch list. I will tell you that today was the new drop dead date, so that deadline wasn't met either.
Quick question about the system Blackland drives me crazy, because I go to them from the high school every day. The awning over your door,
Yep.
it just clashes, the color. Can we get a black one?
Terry, can you put that down for me, please?
Does anybody else notice that?
No.
I couldn't
Done before my
believe
time.
there wasn't
Well,
I'm
awning
looking
over
this
the
way.
door.
It's purple, and it's
Well,
purple.
I think that's.
It's not
But now with the door colors.
Oh, apparently it's not North
really
purple.
good
It's
at
not
it.
North.
Well, is it the Norton purple that
It's
has
not.
been approved?
Karen just said it is not.
Okay, wow.
And neither are these tablecloths for the record.
Well, okay.
So.
If we can make it black with the Norton, like there's something on, you know, and.
We'll work on it
just
for
clashes
you.
with
Yes,
the doors.
we,
is all I'm
I've just made, I didn't make a note of it, but it is here.
Thank
And
you.
I do think a lot of people are noticing how much better the school looks with new
It's
windows.
amazing, absolutely.
I mean,
All
like,
of them.
sporting events, people are coming
Yeah.
up saying the building looks so great with new windows. It's amazing. You wouldn't think people would really notice, but the windows have definitely given it a much sort of.
I think all three of the buildings.
Yeah,
I go by
absolutely.
LG North and I can't believe, like, there was, did they paint good?
They
That
did.
tan color?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have
Yeah,
some
big
painting left for
difference.
the spring that we've done at our own cost, you know, just as I would say, just to make it go.
Right.
Same thing at the Yale and same thing at the
Right, it's a big
JCS.
difference. Looks good.
Anything
It's
else?
great.
Budget review?
I just want to remind the committee that we're going to meet for the workshop on the 8th, that Saturday the 8th, and that's at 9 a.m. And then that will mean that we may have to stick another school budget.
Did that change? I thought it was the second.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
changed it
yours.
to, we changed it to the 8th. There was an email I sent out a while back. The concern that.
You do? Thank you.
The concern is, I just want to, I'm going to put it under other, but I might as well talk about it here. So today, I attended the superintendent's winter workshop in Marlboro. It was actually a good presentation, but we also heard from the commissioner on the Student Opportunities Act, SOA. The community of Norton will receive $72,000. This is your 7th consecutive year since I've been here doing the budget where you've received between $20 or $30. I am seriously concerned that 160 districts, after a lot of work by a lot of people, 85% of the $300 million is going to 35 districts. I might just call it the Robin Hood Act instead, because I really feel that down the line, this is very troublesome for me. The second part that troubles me even more is that we are being asked to complete basically an accountability, and I know members of the NTA is here. I'd like to thank the MTA as well. That's something I know you hear from the superintendent all the time for their work to not have this done, but the legislators felt that they needed to, which is these new funds need to be reported on with an action plan. It's called a short form if you're getting less than 1.5 million. I think we are. Or the long form if you're getting more than
Right around
1.5
sneaking
million. Do the tricky math, we're off by about, $1 million and $430,000. I don't get it. I'm not the smartest bulb, as you all know, but when it comes to this stuff, it really just bothers me, because here's the catch. We are considered a community it's called hold harmless, which is that you get something. We've been getting something for a decade. It's been between 10, sometimes 20. It's been never higher than 50 that I can remember in more recent history, and 30. Usually the governor comes in at 20, Republican or Democrat, and the legislature moves it to 30. So we go from 50 to 72. That's not new funding. 160 communities are receiving what I believe, under the hold harmless provision, is exactly what they should be getting. While a bunch of other communities are getting funding that's significantly more than they typically do, which is what I would say is the SOA money, the Student Opportunities Act funds. I'm going to be asked, I'm not going to be, I've already been asked, under the law, that $72,000 we just got has been earmarked for student improvement. And I have to write a report with public commentary, support from the union, and school committee vote prior to April 1st on $72,000, which I will absolutely do. We have some ideas that I believe will be supported by, targeting need and so on and so forth. And we'll put different ideas on the table. But to say that this is Opportunity Act funding above and beyond what the minimum that we should be getting, I think is a little bit of a slap in the face to the Mass Teachers Association, to the Mass Association of School Superintendents, to the Mass Association of School Committees, and to all of those that have been involved. I believe we were sold out at the table. I just said it. I hope somebody picks it up. I do. I believe what happened was, in order to make sure we took care of 35 or so communities, or 85%, 35% of communities.
Got 85% of the funds.
Thank you. We got left behind completely. And my concern is, if we look at this long term, what is the implication? The implication is increases to certain cities of $21 million in one fiscal year. Not saying they don't deserve it and shouldn't get it, absolutely. But I don't think it's fair to those that, in my opinion, are being left behind. So that's one part. The second part is, I'm really concerned that the legislature has tied Chapter 70 money that belongs to the town and then the school committee to an accountability line. It's always been Chapter 70 goes to the town, and we then go back and forth with the town, or get it all, or get some of it, or get most of it, or whatever, typically because it's only been $72,000, $50,000 increase. It's not a whole lot to argue about. But it goes into the general fund. I mean, that's the process for it. I'm worried about the circumventing of the school committee. That, although now we need all this input for you to make a decision. So what happens if you decide that you don't want to agree with me, the teachers union, and all the parents, that you decide, no, we're going to spend it here? I still think you have that authority. We've just tied the Student Opportunity Act to the school committee having to accept what all these other folks think or don't think, which is a good thing. But to me, I really think it once again takes even more authority away from the school committee, even though it still requires your vote. You're tying Chapter 70. So this reminds me of Race to the Top, probably the biggest discussion that I had in my last district in some ways. Because you got this money, you got to agree to do ABC. And all the parties at the table, had to agree as well. So I'm just worried about what this means. We're not getting $600,000 in 1 year. That boat is gone. You're going to get exactly the way the math worked out, about $600,000 over 6 to 7 fiscal years. Now, there is a piece of good news. It seems like circuit breaker for special education tuition is going to be maintained at 75% over the next few years. That's going to be their big target. Not 60%, not 55, not 72, but 75. They're also adding, and this is where it could be good for Norton, the idea of a circuit breaker for special education transportation. The positive of that is they're supposedly starting at 25% reimbursement to the school department for that line. That could become over time a significant hundreds of thousands. So if you, let's say you spend $1 million, the first year 25%, if they just do it flat, is $250. That's a nice offset to a budget that's like ours. If that became 50%, now you're talking some significant savings, and you're not really asking the town for new money. You're actually, you can keep, you're now saying, I don't need to move that money from this line item to that line item to pay for transportation. It's starting to somewhat take care of itself. Even if it was 50%, that would be huge for us. You're talking about in the vicinity of $400,000 to $500,000. That's a deal breaker, right? That's pretty significant. So that's a positive of this whole process. But the idea that 85% of the money is being spent on 35% of
Will there be like a unified response by the 65% who are not getting?
Well, you're looking at the guy who's starting it.
So-
I've already reached out to superintendents in the area, trying to figure out what people are getting, and just simply saying, we've already reached out through the NTA to Senator Feeney's office. I will specifically reach out next week on Monday with a letter to our state delegation. I will CC you folks and I'll CC the town so that they know, that this is what the next 6 to 7 fiscal years are going to look like. This is where you're going to be. You can predict what you're going to get every single year.
So I want to just understand something you talked about. When it comes to the Chapter 70 money that they're giving us, we have to account for, what was it, $72,000?
Yeah.
But we're not guaranteed to get that from the town.
So that's a great statement. That's a great lead-in. So let's say we had gotten $720,000. Do we all think that all 100% of that was going to be coming to us? I think we would probably, and that was, a commissioner actually said that today. He said, you may have to think that within your community, that whopping new amount that you're getting, that you're going to have to give some of that up to the town for town services as a way to cut a deal and get the money through. Right? In some communities, no discussions about Chapter 70. It just goes. Like there is no discussion about Medicaid reimbursement or any of that stuff. In other communities, it's much more contentious. Our community here, because our growth, I mean, again, we already know today what it's going to be for FY 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26. We can make that determination because of the way that they're establishing this act. Hopefully the state legislature will move on something and say, we are leaving, we get a lot of elected officials that represent 160 districts. So I'm hoping that we see something. But remember, this was a deal cut in the spring or in the fall for now. So the likelihood of us seeing any more money, I think, is slim. Because remember, the Senate has a tendency to say, yes, let's increase it. And the House has a tendency to no. And usually the Compromise Committee says, no, we agreed to a big bill. I'm not sure that everybody really understood that 85% was going to 35%.
This is what we discussed in that forum we had when we had multiple districts here. We had a couple of senators, and we were kind of all pleading our cases. And you hear some of the things in the news about some of our districts surrounding us are having many more issues than we have. But to me, it seems the state's just is falling on deaf ears.
Yeah, I think the problem is that I'll give you an example. When I got here, we had 15 ELL students. We're going to be above 60, and we are not meeting the needs of those students right now. And as a former ELL student, that's really hard for me to say. So we have in the budget for next year a position. The $72,000, I'm probably going to say is going to be one of the ideas. But what I need the town to understand, and I hope my colleagues as superintendents are doing this, this is earmarked money. This is money that I have to show is going in a particular. I'm going to have to do the action plan and do a follow-up report every year.
So do we have to show the full 72,000 on that report, or is it?
That is
if
correct.
We're going to get 60. We have to show only 60.
Right now, we have to. If we're getting 72, you have to show 72 in your action plan.
So I know we were talking about this before, but if that is earmarked for us, why is there even an issue? Why are we having an issue?
The way that Chapter 70 works is that Chapter 70 is considered part of the general fund of the town. And almost it's just the way it works.
Oh, yeah, okay.
The argument that makes it easy at times is that when you have growing populations and enrollment and all, it's really easy because you're taking care of expenses. When you have it the other way, it makes it more difficult. But there are communities where there's a debate about Chapter 70 funding. I have not had that in Norton. I don't see that happening in Norton. It might have happened before me, I don't know. But we've never had that discussion. The other part of this discussion that's really important is that the charter school reimbursement is supposed to go up. So we're supposed to, the town is supposed to see a positive of about 125, 130. That should be money that we make an argument for. And in the past, we have received those funds.
I think we need to start making an argument though for the 72,000.
I don't think you need, the 72,000 is going to come our way, I think, when it's all done. I don't think you have to make an argument for it.
As long as that is what is happening.
Yeah.
Because,
I think you get bogged down in trying to argue for money that's theoretically you get a mark. I think it's kind of a waste of time. You gotta remember, money's fungible, so if they say, if we make the argument, hey, we want that $72,000, it has to come to us, it's going to us. Yep, not a problem, $72,000, it's all yours.
And then they
They're gonna
cut
take
the
it back.
budget.
Our budget's not a defined.
But once again, it's just not fair how it's done.
Well, here's the curveball. I got another curveball for you.
But can I just joke, can I just finish?
Absolutely.
And you know, I've never wanted to argue against our financial interests, but at the same time, it's difficult to make the argument or prove that that's not fair, because there's not a defined budget. It's not the schools get X, the town gets Y, and if something additional comes in, and it's the schools, they get that additional, because that's not how we do a budget process. So it's just a difficult argument to make. And I'm not saying that it's not an argument that, you know, you should feel passionate about. I'm just saying it's not a good argument, I'll say.
Is this the 70-30 split, is that what sort of?
There's no 70/30 split. It's a fictitious number.
It's supposed to be that.
It's a fictitious number. And simple math.
So what was your other curveball?
Title I funding from the feds as a grant is going to be down an estimated 100, sorry? Potentially. I mean, pre-numbers, $105,000. So 72 plus minus 105, you're now in a negative. So this is the budget game now in terms of the real information. We do not have our actual, town manager and I haven't spoken about any of this in terms of what is he seeing for receipts in total and what does it mean to the budget and all that. I think that'll happen in the next week to 2 weeks.
I think the frustrating part too, Dan, like you mentioned, we had that forum where it was Senator Feeney, right? We had State Rep Barrows here, you know, pleading our case, and we're getting nowhere, you know.
Well, I mean, it's, you know, I've had a couple of meetings with the state rep that I've met in my hometown, and they know it's there, but it's just, you have to just continue to get more voices. And as much as I respect the forum we had, they're just two of the many people in the pond. And, you know, I just casually mentioned, they're starting to almost take education and make it like the private sector. Do more with less. And unfortunately, education can't do that. You can't. That's not a model you can survive with education. You know, we can do that in the private sector, absolutely. But
yeah, and I think part of the problem is that when people say, well, you have to run it as a business and all this other stuff, yeah, we're in the human business. And the fact of the matter is that we have areas of mandates and control that are areas that we can't control because of the needs of an individual student in order to support them, in order to make sure that they're getting the equal access and the equity that they deserve. And, you know, as I said when this whole thing was going on, and I was sitting on the exec board back in 2013-14 of MASS, I said, listen, if we really want to resolve our problems, we know poverty is an issue, and we know that educating students with significant learning needs is financially problematic. And it's not about choosing, you know, in terms of should they or shouldn't. I mean, that's where the state should come in. You know, the state should come in and say, well, no, you know, the burden is on all of us as a community in terms of the finances and to support students who have those needs. And, I mean, we finally got special education transportation to be discussed. My colleagues in regional transportation, they actually just got knocked down. So regional transportation, which is supposed to be fully funded at 100%, because you're coming from all different places to a regional, they actually just got cut. So they have to find that negative within their budget. So that's the update, and I'll keep you
Didn't the
posted.
regional schools, aren't they getting more reimbursement from the towns now?
Yeah, they're getting that too,
So
but they may not get it.
But it just feels like, sort of what you said, Dinesh, it's kind of all a wash. Like they give you something, but then they take something away. So you're sort of always staying in kind of a limbo. So although they took busing away, they're giving more money for sort of the reimbursement. So in some ways, they might be in a little bit of a deficit, but they're not in, they are still getting extra money. So it's really unfortunate. And
what we've done, I think, is what's really unfortunate is we've decided to take public, I don't know here, we've decided to take public education, and instead of just calling it public education, we now have Voc Tech Ed, we have Aggie, we have Charter, we have pre-K to 12, we have regionals in terms of pre-K to 12 regionals, but then they're different depending if they're, you know, how many school committees they have, and as part of the regional agreement and so on and so forth. You go to some other states, the cost of educating a child is one cost across the board. You go to some states, you have one salary scale for support staff, teachers, whoever. It doesn't matter if you live on that side of town, or that side of the state, or this side of the state. Massachusetts doesn't. And so, it's unfortunate in some ways. Thank you. Appreciate the conversation.
Vote to approve 2 or 3 school committee members to budget subcommittee.
There's a minimum of 6 finance committee members, and I'm told by Mr. Rotundi, probably way over 6, if not all of them, want to come through some of our
It's news to Amy.
We like you guys so much.
Yes. So it requires, it's a fortunate and unfortunate situation, right? It's a fortunate situation if you had a subcommittee and you don't have to post, you can get into so many other discussions that lead to education, that lead to people then asking the questions at open meeting. These meetings are probably going to have to be open. I'm fine with that. I'm going to do the same thing regardless. The idea is to start with kind of these big numbers, if you will. Try to get the finance committee to really understand the 9 different sections of the budget that we have to work with, and what does that mean in terms of per pupil expenditure. It's a very simple 1 page, so that folks can understand. I will tell you, thanks to the work of our academic coordinator and former principals at the high school, where our formula is going to show that 42 students this year are also considered vocational technical students, because we have 42 students at the high school in our business technology chapter 74 program. Now, although at the end of the day that doesn't give us a plus, the amount of money that you're going to see in that line item gives us an overall less of a negative hit, just as we did a few years ago when we really pushed the idea of please fill out your free and reduced lunch. I don't know if you remember that when we did the mailings and stuff, and we saw an uptick of 42 kids, which created more money to the formula, which didn't hurt us as much. So if you want 3, you can have 3. I think we're going to be looking at starting in early March. We're going to take a look at when people are available, but I think it's going to be a night meeting. I'm hoping to make it earlier than 7, but I may have to stick to 7. We'll kind of have to work with the finance committee on that. And then either, as long as there aren't 3 of you there, we only have to worry about posting. If there are 3 of you, then I have to post it as a joint meeting. So it's really your decision.
I can volunteer to be 1 person.
What if we did 2 people with an alternate?
Yep, and then you could just have a floating person. Or we post it. Again, it's just going to say school department budget.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're at 2. Dinesh?
And I could be an alternate. Whatever.
Okay.
No, I'm not the finance person. I don't know where it's at.
So in actuality, if I show up and sit in the crowd,
You're fine. Yeah, as long as you're not partaking in the, at the table. Yeah, you could do a little,
I'll start early.
what's his name, Valentine, that was when he was at Mets and he put on his face. All right, so I will need a motion that we are going to have 2 members attending with a floating member, and that would be Carolyn and Dinesh representing. Huh?
This is just
discussion.
This is an informational committee for the purposes of trying to establish line item information for as many FinCom members who come.
I'm only clarifying that because I've been on other committees where we've had people talk about how we're trying to take over the town. We don't even have the voting authority, I know what you're talking about. So I want to clarify, this is
Yeah.
simply an informational subcommittee.
Yes.
Nothing.
Which also allows for the FinCom or yourselves to say, hey, Joe and Matt, we'd like to see more of this. Hey, Gene, we'd like to hear more about our specialized programs. Hey, Karen, we'd like to look more about the one-to-one and why. It just opens us up, and what we would do is kind of schedule those. I'm hoping to schedule those. If they start at 7, I'd like, as you know, once these numbers get over your head,
Yeah.
we'll try to stick to like an hour-and-a-half agenda type of thing. If we don't finish the agenda, we start the agenda the next time. The next day is the number 1 item.
Great, so do we have a motion to approve,
Do I have to say the names?
Yes.
Dinesh and Caroline to, and with myself as an alternate, to members of the budget subcommittee?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Superintendent evaluation process.
Thank you. Just wanted to bring back a quick informational piece that with some of the changes in the superintendent's evaluation process, it's being highly recommended that a subcommittee of the full school committee take the lead on that, solely for the purposes of having more in-depth discussions. So in other words, folks being able to come to me as a group of two, typically the chair and the vice chair. We show up, we talk, and we go through and talk about what are the things that we're doing well, that you're hearing from your members. It's not going to stop them from having to fill out the form later. It just allows the process to be more of a dialogue before it happens on the other side. So I'm just informing you of that, and when the time comes, we can put together that subcommittee, or we could put it together tonight. It's up to you.
And the subcommittee is just 2 people?
Yes, because and because it is an evaluation, the moment you have 3, then that becomes a posted meeting, and I have the right to have those discussions before it becomes a public meeting. And like I said, it's typically the chair and the vice chair, but you guys can decide later if you want to choose that.
We're voting on this now?
No, you don't have to.
Okay,
Nope.
move on.
Information.
NESDEC enrollment figures.
Yeah, so before you, in front of you there is our 12/12/2019 NESDEC enrollment numbers. Now, this is the company that we utilize along with 50+% of the Commonwealth for the purposes of doing enrollment year to year over time. And it's off, yes. Yeah. So I don't know if I'd call it garbage, but that's, you know.
I'm sorry, it's garbage.
Okay. So as you look at it, well, motion to close the meeting. Just want to let you know on.
All they did was they just took what historically happened in the past 5 years and just said, okay, what's the average? That's what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
I see a lot of time in people's, like, you know, someone does a 5-year budget plan and they do the same thing. It's lazy. It's like, that's not how you do it.
The only added benefit is on the last page, which is the most up-to-date additional data. One of our biggest problems that we have is actual birth data, because we're a community where we have people that are moving, and more so than ever before. So that always, we're really not sure about what our full-day kindergarten enrollment's going to be. I mean, one year we said it was going to be 130 something, it was like 178.
175.
Right, and I'm like, okay, that's more than just, you know, more teachers. So that's one part. The second part is your actual enrollment by grade, January 10th, one sheet. It's just a comparison of January 17th, 2019 to January 10th, 2020. So this is actual, kept at the schools, put together by Ms. Rand, my executive assistant. I get it every month. It gives me some information. So we have 2,337 students. By the way, our Chapter 70 was based on 2,400 students, so right away, connected to the NESDEC study, it's off by over 100 students. We have 139 school choice students, which is going to bring in a minimum of $815,000, according to the release of the funds yesterday. We have 43 DHH enrollment students for a total enrollment of 2,519 as of the 10th of January. Next one will come up. The next sheet that you have, keep going, is you have from Jean Sullivan a kind of breakdown of our specialized programs. We are currently at 4 at the JCS, 3 at the LGN, 4 at the Hay, 4 at the middle school, and I believe potentially a 5th for next year, because we finally have these students kind of following through. And then we have 5 at the, sorry? Oh, sorry, you don't have the backside? Oh, my bad. Okay, sorry, the backside is the high school, which is 5, plus the bridge program, although not a special ed program, is specialized. Yes.
Okay, so what was the last one on the middle school?
Grid, sorry. Grid,
Well, that's
number of classrooms, 1.
Well, language base has 2.
Language base has 2.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, I made the same mistake too.
Okay. And then the high school is what?
The high school has 2 STEP classrooms, 2 language-based, and 1 grid. And then non-special education, but specialized in terms of service delivery, we have 1, which is the bridge at the high school, which is for students coming back from support that they need. So just wanted to provide you that. And yes? No, go ahead.
On this sheet right here, the Norfolk Schools cost cheat sheet, at the bottom of it, where it has the SBA grant funds, and it has the LJCS and LGN. Are those?
Wait a minute, where?
We're on this page.
Oh, we haven't gotten to that page yet, this page.
Yeah.
So this is the page titled Cost Cheat Sheet at the top.
The three things at the bottom, are those tied to those buildings? Those are?
Yes.
That's grant money that goes into those buildings?
Correct.
And it's tied to those buildings?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so this, when you're looking at this, is you're looking at the whole idea of the funds that will be coming through the town for the purposes of the MSBA reimbursement.
Okay.
Correct? That's correct, yeah. And the reason why I gave you this sheet is for 2 reasons. Number one, when you're looking at schools, you're bringing in $66,060 from Reed's rental and another $32,000 from FICO for $98,272. If you were to eliminate the Reed's program and then say that you weren't going to have them here on campus, your out-of-district transportation just increased by $133,000 because we have 3 students, sorry, that are residents of the town and part of the DHH program. So these are families that are in many ways supporting us because, you know, their children are right here. They're part of their community. They don't have to go to XYZ school, but then there would be a cost to us. So it basically becomes a $200,000 plus issue for us if we just get rid of any connection that we have with out of district with Reed's and Bike.
Which is the same if we go to the page that was before that, the specialized programs, that many of these students were leaving our district.
Right.
And now we're incorporating them back in at a savings, correct?
That is easily in the low 7 figures.
Which is also part of the space comments, right?
Yeah.
That children are now, there's, we said 4 classes at JCS, 5 at the high school, 4 at the middle school. So many spaces are being utilized at a savings for us because we're not sending those students out of district.
That's right, yes. And remember that out of your 5 buildings, you only have 1 building that went through addition renovation that's created what you would call those support classrooms for students and/or, for example, provided the life skills and vocational skills like we have in our programs where we have like a washer and a dryer. So we're with students that are significantly in need of those types of skill sets and required by their IEP to have those skill sets.
The other thing to remember about that is you're not only, so you're keeping the students in and you're saving that tuition money, but you're also not spending the transportation money, which can often be almost as much as the tuition for the year.
And so when you add up, currently there are 44 students and growing out of district, right? And so those are
You say 44
out of district and growing just because of the significance. So the next battle that if the next big discussion we have to have as a district is how do we potentially reach out to colleagues, to peers in other districts and say, how do we come together so that we're not sending somebody just out of district who has the space to say, let's bring this together in this position, split the cost of staffing and support to a certain extent so that you're not having to pay, in some cases, significant. And better. We always say, one of the reasons why we really push the collaboratives is because we know a lot more about the curriculum because it's grounded around the public schools. But sometimes you have to use private. We'll have a breakdown for you as well.
I think the other important discussion that at some point we need to have is around mental health, because we've been having that to some extent, but many of the students that, when we talk about growing, the students that are going out, for the most part right now, are students with significant mental health issues. And not necessarily students on PACE. No, they're not, and many of them didn't start out that way or aren't, and then we're still having this discussion that we can't support them in the public school because their needs are too significant. So I think that's, I don't know how we do that, but we'll have to start talking about that.
Any other discussion? Okay, and schools based assessment, I believe we are tabling.
Yeah, I'm recommending that you table it to be your number one item at the joint meeting based upon communication that we all received that I forwarded to you from a citizen request. We're down to trying to get 2 dates. The March, I think it's the first 2 dates in March.
Will that just be
March 3rd and 19th, I think it is.
Selectmen and us, or will that
And
be
FinCom,
as
they'll
well?
be invited as well.
Great.
March 3rd and March 19th.
Yeah.
March 3rd, we have negotiations.
Which third is a Tuesday?
Then it's the Thursday, sorry,
The 5th.
the 5th.
Okay. Oh, okay, so it's.
Yeah, because we can take care of school committee business and not necessarily, and I think the other boards can too, without having to worry about it.
So that's saved for the joint meeting, okay, so then other business.
I have no other business, Madam Chair.
What is this?
That was just attached to that, yeah.
All right, does anybody else have anything to add tonight? What about this?
That's just informational for you folks. We'll be talking about that in the near future, just an informational piece. It's a Boston Architectural College tour, and that I wanted you to have information on that we have an articulation agreement with.
Great. Okay, so do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.